Congratulations, you finished your first draft. Now what? I have written 9 books, and in this video, I'm going to share with you all of the edits I make first when starting my second draft. There are so many things that I want to edit in my books after I finish my first draft. My first draft is a very roughed together version of my story. It's got continuity errors, it's got weak characterization, it's got plot holes, it's got world building issues. It can be overwhelming to know where to start. And so in this video, I'm going to share with you where I like to start. I generally do at least 5 drafts of every book that I publish, if not more. And so this is really just my first major round of edits. I like to edit big picture down to detail. I like to start with the biggest problems and work my way down to the smaller details. So I like to think of it as kind of like a triangle, I guess. Like I will start at the base of the triangle, fixing the world building and the characterization and all of the really, really big problems. And then as I go up to the point of the triangle, in the point of the triangle, this is where all of the issues like grammar and spelling and filter words and things are. So we're not going to be talking about any of that stuff today. Second drafts is for big picture revising and really big problem fixing. So let's just get right into it. The first thing that I do after I finish a first draft, the first thing I do after I finish first draft is celebrate and put the book away for at least a day if I'm really obsessed with the project and just want to dive right into edits. The longer I can force myself to put the book away, the better and easier this second draft process is. And so I recommend pausing for at least 2 weeks before starting the second draft process. This allows you to get some distance from the project. It allows you to take a breath, to just relax your brain so that you can approach it again with fresh eyes. But right after I finish the draft, before I've taken these 2 weeks, I like to sit down and do an immediate brain dump of everything I know I have to change in this manuscript. And I don't put any rules on this, just like a huge brainstorm where I will just write as fast as I can bullet point notes of everything I know that needs to be fixed. So if I wasn't feeling a character, if I didn't like them, I'd write it down. If a certain relationship I thought I would give more time to and I completely glossed over and it went nowhere in the manuscript, but I know I want those characters to start dating, I put that on the list. If a character needed to be sexier, I put it on the list. If there had to be more banter between characters, I put it on the list. If there were scenes I had to delete, I put it on the list. If there's a world building hole that I know that I put in there that needs to be reconciled, I put it on the list. I write literally everything that I can think of in this editing brain dump, and then I'll put the book away for 2 weeks. After those 2 weeks pass and I reopen the book, the first thing I do is I go to that editing checklist and I do the exact same thing. Sometimes letting a project marinate in my brain for a little while opens my eyes to things about that project that I know need to be changed, or that I didn't think of right away that now I've realized need to be changed, or new ideas for potential. So I do the same thing. I will brain dump all of the things that I can think of that I would like to change in the manuscript, just in a separate page document in my Scrivener file. Once I have that document, I move on to organizing it. I do my best to organize it by chapter and make a list of the things I need to edit in each chapter. Sometimes one of these bullet point things will be, I need to find a place to work in this particular character's backstory, and then I have to go back when I'm making the editing plan and figure out roughly where I want that to be. Some changes will need to be applied throughout the whole manuscript. Like if one of my bullet points is like, cut 100,000 words from this manuscript, that is something that has to be applied across the board. But I try to sort them into buckets as best as I can and take the ones that are not, that I need to find a home for and think about where they could go. If I need to find a place for a character's backstory to be woven into, I will try to think about different places in the manuscript that could go, pick one, and for now it just goes into that bucket. The next thing that I do when making a revision plan is I make a retroactive plot grid. I talk about plot grids a lot on this channel. I have made many videos explaining what plot grids are, so if you would like to go learn more about what plot grids are, I've linked a video I made a couple weeks ago in the description of this one explaining exactly what a plot grid is and linking you to a couple templates I made so that you can make them yourself. I don't want to go into the details of what a plot grid is here, so go watch that video and come back if you're interested in learning more about what it is. What I like to do is I like to take the book that I've written and go create a plot grid and put all of the things that I wrote into that plot grid. Because a lot of the times when I write a draft one, it will deviate from the plot grid that I created before I wrote the draft one, and it will be a slightly different book. And so I want to go put all of the stuff that is on the page into that plot grid, because if I need to make big revisions to it, and if those revisions are kind of daunting, it's much easier to be able to see the entire book from a bird's eye perspective on a plot grid than it is to be scrolling up and down like a 200,000 word manuscript. So I don't add anything to it, I write it exactly as it is. And once I have that all put together, I do my edits in the plot grid. So I pretend the plot grid is my book, and I make changes to it and I add things to it as if that were my manuscript to create a plan for what I want to do next in draft 2. In the past, I've sometimes color-coded these, like anything new that I want to add, I will write in green, anything I want to delete, I will strike through. I found it easier to just write out in all the same color text exactly what I want the new version of the book to be, and then if it's not described in the plot grid, I can just assume I'm deleting it. And then if it's something new that's not in the current chapter, then I'll just have to make a note that I'm adding it. This is where I take my editing sheet and I make sure that I incorporate all of the edits that I brainstormed into that plot grid, because this plot grid is going to become my roadmap for my draft 2. It will be the blueprint that I work from when putting together my draft 2. Once I have that all put together, I will work on implementing the changes and rewriting the book in accordance to the plot grid and the plan. Some authors retype out their entire draft 2. I don't do this, but I do go through it very, very carefully, and I edit every single word. I will read it aloud to myself and I will dig into the prose, and it will take me a very long time to get through draft 2. So some people find retyping is helpful. If I do that, then I just kind of find myself retyping word for word what I had instead of really engaging my brain and grappling with what I've written. You have to figure out what works best for you. So I like to think of my draft 2 as my first big pass of revision. Anything that I have off the top of my head gets thrown into my editing dump and I will put it into the revision guide. But there are certain things I really like to focus on. Like, I like to focus on the big picture stuff in my second draft. And as I progress and do like draft 3 and draft 4, I will get more narrowed in my focus. But for this draft, I'm focusing on the big things. I'm going to now tell you the areas that I focus my revision on for draft 2, because I feel like if I focus on too much, like making sure that everything is better, then it gets overwhelming. So if I break it down and focus on just certain things at a time, it makes the whole process more manageable. The first area I really focus on is strengthening character. By the end of my first draft, I have a pretty good idea of who my characters are and who I want them to be. I want them to come alive in the second draft. That is my main focus for the second draft. In the first draft, I don't really know who they are. I'm still figuring it out. I'm figuring out their voice, but every single interaction between my characters in draft 2 needs to feel like a real interaction between real people. The protagonist's voice has to be sharp. The antagonist's voice has to be unique. Every character has to be so in character. All of the romance has to have tons of chemistry. The banter has to work. The emotions have to be there. Like, all of the feelings that the characters have to create in the book have to be sharp and have to be working. Any flat background characters have to be fleshed out if I want them to be, unless I just want them to be flat background characters, because they have a place in fiction. The second thing I really focus on is world building. Now I've written a first draft where I've done all of the things that I want the world to do. I know how the world, like the story is going to work within the world, and so now I have to reshape the world so it can support the story that I want to tell. My first drafts are usually riddled with contradictions and issues in world building, because I'll get an idea for a scene and I'll be like, I'll invent a new rule on the fly and just in order to make that scene happen. And so I have to work backwards and figure out how to build the world so the world can do exactly what I want it to in order to make the story happen. Essentially, I have to make it look like it was my ideal all along. So I have to go back and do a lot of world building work. The third thing is tightening the voice. Not tightening the prose. I don't do any searching for filter words. I don't do any searching for redundancies or echoes or anything like that. But everything that I've written has to sound authentic and like it's grounded in the voice of the main character. Anything that is vague or wordy or out of character or not specific, I have to make it very specific. I have to sharpen everything, and I have to make it just sound like it's spoken by my main character. Because I write first person present tense, the voice is very important. And that's really what makes a story come alive to me. And so that's my main focus. It will not be perfect. It's never perfect on my second draft, but that is a huge thing I focus on when I'm working on my second drafts, because I want it to get significantly better in my second draft. And the fourth thing is all major rewrites. So like if I need to add a scene, if I have to get rid of a scene, anything like that, I want to be creating the prose that I need in order to fill in the blanks, or deleting giant chunks of prose that I actually don't need anymore. I want to have the plot hang together the way that I want the plot to hang together. All books are different. Some books are going to require a ton of rewrites. Some are not going to require that many. Some it's just nips and tucks. So this is the draft where I really try to do all of that work, like deleting big paragraphs and deleting scenes and revising scenes and changing things. The big thing I try not to focus on, and this is always very hard for me, is cutting words. I'm a huge overwriter, and my drafts are always really long, and they're way too long for me to publish them at that length. It is always part of my process that I will cut a huge amount of words from my manuscript before publishing it. The most recent book that I wrote, my final draft was, I think it was like 180,000 words of They Stay 5, and I published it at 135,000 words. So I cut a lot out of that, and that was, I did one pass where I just read through it and I slashed that book to pieces, and I took over 40,000 words out of it. But I was trying to cut it before doing that and pulling my hair out because I couldn't get it any shorter, and I was getting really stressed because I didn't want it to be so long. And if I had just waited for the right time in the process to do that, I would have saved myself a lot of headache. And so I'm trying to learn from that, and now I really try not to cut anything out. I just try to get everything the way that I want it to be, which is annoying because obviously my first drafts are bulky and they're long and they're wordy, and so it's a lot of text to work with. But right now, that is what's working for me the best, because I have to be in the right headspace to kill my darlings, and I think I need to kill my darlings when I'm in the headspace of a reader and not a writer. It is a lot easier for me when I'm reading it like for pleasure. When I'm in the kind of pre-publication stage where I'm being a lot more critical on myself, to be able to turn that critical eye towards the book and start cutting chunks out of it. So that's one thing I absolutely do not do in the second draft, even though it's hard. So that is how I like to approach writing second drafts. I hope this video is helpful to you. If it was, I would be super grateful if you could like this video and also subscribe to my channel. My name is Claire Fraze, and I'm an award-winning author who makes videos sharing actionable writing tips that helped me make my own writing better. Are there things you like to focus on when writing your second drafts? How many drafts do you usually write? I have a very structured process and a kind of clearer method for my second drafts because I write so many drafts in my book, but I know a lot of authors who edit as they go and they don't do this full draft revision process. And so their process looks a lot different than mine. My only intention on this channel is to share what works for me and how my brain works and how my writing process works, just to give you different ideas and things to try. No one method is gonna work for everyone. These are only the things that work for me. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic week, everybody. And as always, happy writing.